Generalized anxiety disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder can be seen on on a spectrum of thoughts from egosyntonic to egodystonic. That's just jargon for what seems reasonable versus what seems unreasonable to the person having the thoughts. So a generalized anxiety, egosyntonic worry thought might be something like, what if I lose my job? And the avoidance behavior and response might be checking and rechecking work email, getting reassurance from a boss or coworkers, or overworking. Comparatively, an OCD, ego dystonic thought would be something like, what if the door isn't locked? Even when a person just watched their hand open or lock the door, and that this thought could give them the feeling of uncertainty. In the presence of the feeling of uncertainty, the avoidance behavior could be checking and rechecking the door, taking a picture of the door, getting reassurance from a friend that the door is locked. Sometimes you might start trying to trick your mind into wanting anxiety when you truly don't prefer to have it. This is a common experience in the process of exposure and response therapy. You might expose yourself to your anxiety and get quick relief. Then, if you still really fear whatever it is that you're triggered by, it's likely that your anxiety will come back or pop up at different times. The problem there is that you can't trick your own mind. So the attitude of willing acceptance towards thoughts, feelings, and behavioral urges that occur with the fear response must be authentic for long-term relief. In order to teach ourselves that we can handle the anxious moment, we actually need to go towards our triggers. We need to trigger those sensations and those thoughts on purpose. Anytime you have either an internal or an external trigger, it's a huge opportunity to practice and show yourself that you can relate to it differently rather than avoiding. You want to see it as an opportunity in terms of predicting your distressing thoughts, feelings, sensations, and interpretations. You want to predict them ahead of time, not because you have to know exactly what's going to happen perfectly in the anxious moment, but the better you predict what's likely to occur, then the easier it'll be to get some distance from it. In regard to anticipatory anxiety, you want to think about anticipatory anxiety as an indication of your past rather than a prediction of your future. Anticipatory anxiety is a feeling, not a fact or prediction. What happened in the past in a similar situation is that you braced and avoided, and now your fear circuitry says, hey, watch out there. Here comes the trigger again. I'm going to give you some extra adrenaline so that you know how to avoid. When this starts to happen, you want to override your fear circuitry and say, hey, no, actually, it's okay. We can hang out with this. This is just anticipatory anxiety. It's not predicting that anything bad's going to happen. It's just indicating that in the past, I've avoided. A strategy is a plan of action designed to achieve a major aim. Cognitive behavioral therapy has the reputation of teaching coping skills that help people reduce their anxiety. It's true that if you use the skills to learn to relate to your anxiety effectively, those skills will reduce your anxiety. The skills themselves won't give you what you want, though, a life with less anxiety and less psychological suffering. Think about this in comparison to basketball. The skills themselves, dribbling, shooting, and passing, don't win games. The skills are necessary, but they are not sufficient to win the games. Winning the games requires strategy. If, through learned behavior, you start believing that the fear response itself is dangerous, you will avoid more and more until your world is very small. For example, if you fear that your sensations will lead to a panic attack, you could avoid anything internally or externally that might lead to a panic attack. Or if you fear having certain thoughts, you will avoid internal and external situations that might trigger those thoughts or perform physical or mental compulsions to make those thoughts go away when they inevitably occur. In both cases, you are misinterpreting the fear response as equivalent to danger. The more you avoid, the more often they will occur. People who believe that anxiety equals opportunity pursue internal and external situations that make them anxious on purpose, and then interpret the feeling as excitement. The most helpful attitude towards anxiety is one where it is interpreted as normal, healthy, and an indication that the person is engaging in something challenging and uncertain. Professional athletes, musicians, and performers all feel the same physiology as the anxious person when they are about to perform. They are able to channel their anxiety into high performance because they accept and get distance from their self doubt and use the physical sensations to urge them towards behavior that is effective in that moment. Even the anxiety associated with an unwanted intrusive thought occurring in OCD can be reinterpreted as an opportunity for curiosity towards your mind and how it functions. It can deepen your compassion for yourself and others. Any good discussion of how to avoid those avoidances should start with action. Tell me what you want to move towards, and I can help you stop moving away. By making commitments to behavior, you take the philosophical stance that you can change. You believe that attempting to change in an intentional way is a worthy goal. The commitments you make are process commitments, not outcome commitments. You commit to studying, not acing a test. You commit to showing up to work, not performing perfectly at work. You commit to initiating a conversation, not having the best conversation of your life. In some ways, it's common sense to commit to a process, not an outcome. You can't control outcomes, you can control your process. And yet, you may make outcome goals that constantly feel elusive to you. To achieve a sense of efficacy and mastery, commit to processes that lead you towards your goals and then relax into those processes. You might criticize yourself because you think it's the best way to learn is through criticism. This is just an old theory. Many of us were educated this way, but it isn't true. The best way to learn is to have the safety, time, space, and motivation to try. You have to feel safe to have the courage to put forth effort and risk failing. You don't need criticism when you make a mistake while trying to learn. You need enough safety to keep trying. Are you on my team now? Let's help you get on your team. So compassion is understanding and staying with your own experience. It's an attitude where you're willing to stay with your experience and relate to it with openness and curiosity rather than criticism. You might have a thought like, why do I always feel this? There's something deeply wrong with me that makes me different from others, and no one else will ever understand. A compassionate response is, this is a good opportunity to observe and describe what's happening within me. Because I'm human and inherently part of the rest of the community of humans, nothing happens within me that has never or will never happen to another human. It's not that no one else will ever understand me, but rather I currently don't understand me. This is a hard moment, but if I turn towards myself right now, I have a chance at understanding myself and my suffering better. I might forget what I'm experiencing now when I'm not suffering. So now is the best time to observe and describe what's happening. It's courageous to show up and learn what creates, maintains, and intensifies your anxiety and OCD. And I'm proud of you for taking that next step.